Hey guys, tonight we're going to travel back, way back, further than any king or pyramid, further than any city or empire. We're going to a time when the world was younger, wilder, and immensely colder. You're standing on a vast, grassy plain under a sky that seems impossibly huge. The air is so clean it hurts your lungs, and on the wind is the scent of pine smoke and the distant, musky smell of great beasts. The flickering light of a fire dances on the limestone walls of a rock shelter, and in its glow, you see the faces of your family. Tonight, we journey into the world of our Ice Age ancestors. This isn't the cartoon caricature of club-wielding brutes. This is the story of us, in our original form. And a word of warning, without modern medicine, insulated housing, or grocery stores, you probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is. It's just before 8 a.m. here on a Friday morning in Ho Chi Minh City, and the city is already humming with life. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your first step into this lost world requires you to shed a lifetime of preconceptions. Forget the image of the brutish, hairy, knuckle-dragging caveman stumbling out of a dark cavern, grunting and pointing at things. The people you are joining are not subhuman. They are Homo sapiens. They are us. They have brains the same size as yours, bodies just as capable, and minds just as curious, creative, and complex. They have language, not just grunts, but a fully developed system for communicating complex ideas, for telling jokes, for arguing, for grieving, for teaching. They feel love, jealousy, joy, and sorrow, just as you do. The only difference between you and them is the vast library of accumulated knowledge and technology that separates your worlds. They are not primitive, they are foundational. You find yourself approaching not a dank, gloomy cave, but a living, breathing camp. It's nestled in a strategic spot, perhaps on a south-facing slope to catch the winter sun, overlooking a river valley that serves as a highway for migrating herds of reindeer or horse. The camp itself might be a cluster of huts, ingeniously constructed from a framework of mammoth bones and tusks, covered in stitched animal hides. Or it could be a series of tents made from wooden poles and leather, easily dismantled and moved. Or, like this one, it might be a wide, open rock shelter, a natural scoop in a limestone cliff that provides protection from the wind and rain. The air is alive with the sounds of community. You hear the rhythmic tink, tink, tink of someone striking a piece of flint, the soft scrape of a stone tool on a fresh hide, the murmur of conversation, and the sudden, high-pitched laughter of children playing a game with smooth river stones. The group is small, intimate, maybe 25 or 30 people in total. You are related to almost everyone here by blood or by marriage. This is your entire world, an extended family unit that lives, hunts, eats, and sleeps together. There are no strangers here. You know everyone's history, their strengths, their weaknesses, their particular way of telling a story. It's a level of social intimacy that is almost impossible for us to imagine in our modern world of sprawling cities and digital anonymity. And at the very center of it all, the anchor of this small, floating world is the fire. You are drawn to it instinctively. The hearth is not a temporary bonfire. It's a permanent feature, a shallow pit, perhaps lined with carefully chosen stones that glow with the absorbed heat of 1,000 previous fires. This hearth may have been in continuous use by your people, in this very spot, for generations. It is the heart of the camp, and its importance cannot be overstated. It is survival, technology, and community all rolled into one flickering, dancing entity. First, and most obviously, the fire is warmth. You are living in the Pleistocene, the Great Ice Age. For much of the year, the world is locked in a deep and unforgiving cold. The fire is your shield against the frost, a bubble of artificial warmth that makes life possible. You watch as people come and go from it, warming their hands, turning to let the heat soak into their backs, their faces illuminated in the soft orange glow. The fire keeps the creeping cold of the night at bay, allowing you to sleep without freezing. Second, the fire is light. It pushes back the primordial darkness. Before fire, the day ended when the sun went down. After fire, you have a second day. The light allows for work to continue after dusk. Stitching hides, repairing tools, preparing food for the next day. It creates a safe, illuminated circle in a world filled with nocturnal predators. The great cave bears, the lions, the hyenas, they are out there in the darkness, but they are wary of the flames. The fire is a guardian, a perimeter of light and safety that allows your small band to rest with a measure of peace. Third, and perhaps most importantly, the fire is a tool. It is your primary piece of chemical engineering. You see its most common use right before you. Cooking. Over the flames, pieces of meat are roasting on wooden spits, the fat dripping and sizzling, releasing an aroma that makes your stomach clench with hunger. This isn't just about making food taste better. Cooking is a revolutionary technology. It breaks down tough fibers and proteins, making food easier to chew and digest. This means your body expends less energy processing food and can absorb far more nutrients from it. Cooking meat kills parasites and bacteria, making it safer to eat. It can also neutralize the toxins in certain plants, like starchy tubers, turning previously inedible items into valuable sources of carbohydrates. Evidence for the controlled use of fire by our ancestors dates back hundreds of thousands of years, and this simple act of cooking gave us a massive evolutionary advantage, providing the excess energy needed to fuel our large, power-hungry brains. But its use as a tool doesn't stop there. You see a man take a long, straight branch of yew wood and hold the sharpened tip in the hot embers. He's not burning it. He's carefully fire hardening it. This process drives out the moisture and hardens the lignin in the wood, creating a point that is significantly tougher and more durable than one simply whittled with a stone flake. He is making a spear, and the fire is his forge. Elsewhere, a woman might be using the heat to soften sap from a birch tree, creating a sticky, black tar that serves as a powerful adhesive for hafting a stone point onto a spear shaft. The fire is the original superglue. It's the original television, too. Stare into it long enough and you'll begin to see all sorts of dramas unfold in the shifting flames and glowing coals, a story told in a language older than words. This hearth is the nucleus around which all social life orbits. It's the camp's kitchen, where food is prepared and shared. It's the living room, where people gather to talk and relax. It's the workshop, where tools are finished in the convenient light. It's the nursery, where mothers nurse their infants in the comforting warmth. It is the glue that binds your small community together, leaving the magnetic pole of the central hearth, you begin to take a closer look at the space around you. This is not the filthy, disorganized mess of popular imagination. This is a home, and it's managed with a deep, practical intelligence. There are designated areas for different activities. Near the back of the rock shelter, you see the sleeping area. Piles of soft furs, reindeer, bison, wolf are laid over beds of dry moss and grasses, creating warm and comfortable places to rest. It's likely a communal space, and you can imagine the reality of it. It would be cozy, a pile of bodies snuggling together for shared warmth against the bitter night, but it would also lack any sense of privacy. Cozy, right up until you realize your blanket is also your uncle's blanket, and he happens to snore like a cave bear with a sinus infection. Further out, closer to the edge of the shelter, is the workshop. Here the ground is littered with the evidence of stone tool manufacturing. This isn't just a pile of rocks. You see a napper at work. He sits on a hide, holding a large, rounded core of high-quality flint in one hand. In the other, he holds a hammer, not of stone, but of antler, which is softer and gives him more control. With a sharp, practiced blow, he strikes the edge of the core, and a long, thin, razor-sharp blade of flint flakes off. This isn't random smashing. It's a science, a craft passed down through generations. The ground around him is covered in the waste products of this process, smaller flakes and chunks called debitage, showing that this is a dedicated workspace. Beyond the workshop is the butchering area. Here you see the remains of a recent kill, perhaps a large bison. The bones are not scattered haphazardly. They have been systematically processed. You see long leg bones that have been smashed open with heavy stones to get at the rich, calorie-dense marrow inside. The skull has been carefully broken apart to access the brain, another vital source of fat. This isn't just mindless savagery. It's a sophisticated, zero-waste approach to nutrition, ensuring every possible calorie is extracted from the hard-won carcass. It's an open-air abattoir, but one without price tags or a questionable selection at the deli counter. Here and there, you notice piles of other materials. You see seashells brought here from a coast that may be hundreds of kilometers away, perhaps for making beads or ornaments. You see chunks of iron pyrite, fool's gold, which could be struck against flint to create sparks for starting a new fire. And everywhere, you see traces of ochre, lumps of this soft, iron-rich rock, in shades of deep red, bright yellow, and rich brown, are a common sight. Ochre is a prehistoric Swiss army knife. It's ground into a fine powder and mixed with animal fat to create paint for decorating bodies, tools, and cave walls. But it's also a powerful natural sunscreen, an effective insect repellent, and an antiseptic used in the process of tanning hides to make them soft and durable. It's in this context that you might see an object that defies easy explanation. A small, carved piece of mammoth ivory with intricate geometric patterns etched into it. A fossil shell with a naturally bored hole, worn smooth from being strung on a cord. Archaeologists still debate the precise function of many so-called ritual objects found in these camps. What one researcher interprets as a sacred amulet representing a spirit, another might see as a child's favorite toy, a tool for calculating the phases of the moon, or simply a doodle made by a bored teenager 30,000 years ago. The line between the practical, the playful, and the profound was likely far blurrier than we imagine. As the sun dips below the horizon, the world outside the camp is swallowed by a deep, star-dusted blackness. The temperature plummets. The sounds of the day, the chipping of stone, the chatter, the children's games, are replaced by the sounds of the night. The crackle and hiss of the fire, the low murmur of voices telling stories, the distant howl of a wolf. The camp draws inward, its people gathering closer to the life-giving warmth of the hearth. The circle of light becomes a circle of community, a tiny, fragile island of human warmth in the vast, indifferent wilderness of the Ice Age. You look at the faces in the firelight. A grandmother, her face a roadmap of wrinkles, is showing a young girl how to stitch a seam in a deerskin tunic using a fine bone needle and thread made from sinew. A hunter is retelling the story of the day's chase, his hands animated as he describes the movements of the bison herd. A young couple sits close together, sharing a piece of roasted meat, their shoulders touching. This is the world that made us. It is not a story of constant, desperate struggle. It is a story of competence, resilience, and deep social connection. These people are not just surviving, they are living. And the world they carry in their heads, the intricate map of the landscape, the encyclopedia of plants and animals, the library of stories and myths, is even richer and more complex than the physical camp you see around you. That is the world we will step into next. The firelight casts dancing shadows on the rock walls around you, illuminating the faces of your family. The physical world of your camp is all here. The tools, the hides, the sleeping furs, the embers of the hearth. But the most important part of your world is completely invisible. It's the vast, intricate architecture of knowledge that you and your people carry inside your heads. This is the great library of memory, a repository of information built and curated over thousands of generations, and it doesn't contain a single written word. In our modern age, we instinctively equate knowledge and history with writing. We have books, databases, servers, an endless external hard drive for our civilization. It allows us to be forgetful, to look things up. But for almost the entirety of human existence, there was no writing. This didn't mean there was no knowledge, no history, no science. It meant that the primary storage device was the human mind itself, trained and cultivated to a degree of acuity we can barely comprehend. Memory was not a private, personal quirk. It was a public utility, a social institution. If you want to understand this world, you have to imagine your mind working in a completely different way. Information isn't stored as abstract, decontextualized data points. It's woven into the fabric of life itself. It's encoded in stories told around the fire, in the lyrics of a song chanted during a ritual, in the rhythmic steps of a dance that mimics the movements of a crane. It's embedded in the landscape, where a particular oddly shaped boulder is not just a rock, but a signpost in a mythic story that also tells you where to find fresh water in a dry season. Everything is connected. History, science, law, and religion are not separate subjects. They are one seamless whole, a web of understanding that explains your place in the cosmos. The elders of your group are the master librarians. Their minds are the most treasured volumes, filled with the accumulated wisdom of the ages. To ask a question is not to look something up online. It's to sit with your grandmother and listen as she tells a story. A story that might take 3 hours to unfold but will contain the precise answer you need, wrapped in layers of context, ethics, and humor. It's like having access to the entire internet, but without the pop-up ads or the comment sections. The search engine is a human being who might make you listen to an epic poem before you get your answer, ensuring you understand not just the what, but the why. Your survival as a mobile, hunting and gathering people depends entirely on this library of memory. And its first and most important section is geography. You carry in your head a mental map of a vast territory, perhaps thousands of square kilometers. But it's not a flat, two-dimensional map like one of ours. It's a rich, multi-sensory, four-dimensional model of your world. You know, the curve of every river, the slope of every hill, the location of every cave and rock shelter. You know, where to find the best stone for making tools, that the flint from the high ridge is too brittle, but the chert buried in the clay of the riverbank has a perfect, glassy texture for crafting fine blades. You know, which valleys will be filled with snowdrifts in the winter and which south-facing slopes will offer the first green shoots of spring. This map is alive with time. It's not just about where things are, but when they are. You know that in the late summer, the wild berries will be ripe in the upland meadows. You know that when the moon takes on a certain shape in the autumn sky, the great salmon will be running in the river, and it will be time for the entire group to move down to the rapids to harvest them. You know the migration routes of the reindeer, the bison, and the wild horse, and you know where to position your camp to intercept them. This is not guesswork. It's a precise, predictive science based on generations of observation. And your ultimate clock, calendar, and compass is the night sky. Long before city lights washed it away, the sky was a brilliant, teeming spectacle of light. You know, the patterns of the stars as intimately as, you know, the faces of your family. You can navigate by the unmoving North Star. You watch the great constellations, the hunter, the bear, the seven sisters, wheel across the sky through the night and through the year. The heliacal rising of a particular star just before dawn tells you that the seasons are turning, that the hardest part of winter is over, or that it's time to begin the journey to the summer hunting grounds. The stars are a book written in fire, and you know how to read every page. This isn't astrology, it's astronomy, the world's oldest science, born from the practical need to track time and find your way in a world without landmarks. The power of this oral tradition is staggering. In modern times, we have learned that the oral traditions of Aboriginal Australians contain detailed and geographically accurate accounts of sea level rises, coastal flooding, and the appearance of new islands that occurred at the end of the last ice age, between 7,000 and 12,000 years ago. These are memories, passed down faithfully from one generation to the next, that have survived for millennia. The next great volume in your mental library is the Encyclopedia of the Natural World. You are a walking field guide. Your knowledge of botany is profound. You can identify hundreds of different plants. You know, not just their names, but their properties. This one is food. This one is medicine. The leaves can be chewed to soothe a toothache. The bark can be boiled to make a tea that settles the stomach. This one is poison, to be avoided at all costs, or perhaps used in carefully measured doses on the tip of a hunting dart. You know which mushrooms will kill you and which will provide a hearty meal. You know how to process acorns, leaching out the bitter tannins with water to make them edible and nutritious. You know which tree barks can be stripped and twisted into strong cordage for making nets and carrying baskets, and which woods are best for a bow. Yew for its flexibility and power, and which are best for a spear shaft, ash for its straight grain and strength. Your knowledge of zoology is just as deep. You are an expert in animal behavior because your life depends on it. You can read the story of the last few days written in the tracks on the ground. A lone wolf passed this way. A mother bear and her cubs were digging for roots here. You understand the signs that tell you a herd is nearby. The subtle changes in the wind, the behavior of birds. You know the habits of your prey intimately. The way a wild horse will test the wind before drinking. The defensive circle of a herd of musk oxen. The sheer, unpredictable power of a woolly mammoth. This knowledge allows you to be an efficient and respectful hunter, to understand your place in the food web not as a dominant master, but as one clever predator among many. Anthropologists still debate the extent to which early human groups thought like scientists, but the systematic observation, classification, and practical application of their ecological knowledge demonstrates a process remarkably similar to the scientific method. Of course, the library of memory contains more than just practical knowledge of the physical world. It contains the entire social and legal framework of your people. There are no written laws, no constitutions, no formal courts. Instead, the rules that govern your society are embedded in myth and story. You carry your genealogy in your head, a complex family tree that goes back many generations. This knowledge is crucial. It tells you who you are, what your obligations are to others, and, very importantly, who you are allowed to marry to ensure genetic diversity within your small group. It must have been like living in a prehistoric soap opera where everyone is some kind of cousin and you need a flowchart to figure out who's who. The stories told around the fire are not just entertainment. They are case law, moral instruction, and history lessons all in one. The epic tale of a great hero who outsmarts a giant is a lesson in courage and cleverness. The comical story of a trickster spirit like Coyote or Raven who gets into trouble because of his greed or laziness is a powerful social tool, a warning against antisocial behavior. When someone in your group violates a rule, by failing to share food from a hunt, for instance, they won't be given a fine or thrown in jail. Instead, they might become the subject of gossip or satirical songs, or an elder might tell a pointed story around the fire that evening about a mythical ancestor who acted selfishly and brought disaster upon his people. The message is clear. The shame is a powerful deterrent, and social cohesion is maintained, without the need for police or prisons. Some researchers even speculate that some of the abstract signs found in Paleolithic caves, the dots, chevrons, and lines painted alongside the magnificent animals, might be a form of proto-writing. Not a full alphabet, but a mnemonic system for recording information. This fringe tidbit suggests that these geometric signs could be lunar calendars, tallies of animal kills, or maps of constellations. They are the first hesitant steps towards storing information outside the human brain. The post-it notes of the Paleolithic. Everything you need to know to be a successful, functioning human being in your world is stored in the collective memory of your group. There are no specialists in the modern sense. Everyone is a generalist. Every man is a hunter, a butcher, a tool maker, a storyteller. Every woman is a gatherer, a tanner, a doctor, a teacher. The knowledge is distributed, shared, and constantly reinforced through daily practice and nightly performance. Imagine the mental capacity required. You would never win an argument with your spouse. No, don't you remember? At the winter camp of the Great Reindeer Hunt, when the moon was full, you promised you'd be the one to scrape the hides for the next season. There is no forgetting. The memory of the group is absolute. This is a fundamentally different way of knowing, of being. In our literate world, knowledge is often abstract and compartmentalized. We learn things from books or screens, separate from their practical application. For you, in this world, knowledge is immediate, contextual, and embodied. You don't learn how to make a tool by reading a manual. You learn by watching your father, by feeling the stone in your own hand, by making 100 mistakes until the muscle memory becomes perfect. You don't learn about your history by reading a textbook. You learn it by hearing the story of your ancestors told in the very place where those events happened. The knowledge is alive, and you are a part of it. This invisible world, this library of memory, is the true foundation of your people's success. It's what allows them to be so resilient, so adaptable, so capable of thriving for tens of thousands of years in a challenging and ever-changing environment. It is the software that runs their society. But this knowledge wasn't just used for passive survival, for simply reacting to the world as it was. As we will see, this deep, intimate understanding of the natural world allowed them to become something more than just hunters and gatherers. It allowed them to become the world's first gardeners, the original land managers, actively shaping their environment to create a world of surprising and sustainable abundance. With a library of knowledge stored in your collective memory, you don't just react to the world, you engage with it. You have the software to run a successful society. But now we need to look at the hardware, the landscape itself. And this is where we must dismantle one of the most persistent and damaging myths about our ancient ancestors. The idea that their lives were, in the famous words of the philosopher Thomas Hobbes, nasty, brutish, and short. We have a deep-seated cultural bias that sees the invention of agriculture as the dawn of civilization and everything before it as a dark, miserable struggle for existence. We picture our ancestors as perpetually cold, perpetually hungry, cowering in their caves and constantly one failed hunt away from starvation. We see them as passive scavengers, wandering a hostile wilderness and taking whatever scraps nature happened to throw their way. This image is not just wrong. It's the complete inverse of what much of the archaeological and anthropological evidence suggests. For long stretches of time, in many parts of the world, your life as a hunter-gatherer was not one of miserable toil. It was, in the words of the anthropologist Marshall Salins, the original affluent society. Your needs are simple and direct. Food, water, shelter, companionship. You don't crave possessions you can't carry. You don't have a mortgage, student loans, or a demanding boss. The environment around you, which, with incredible intimacy, provides everything you need. And it does so with what we would consider a shocking degree of efficiency. Studies of modern hunter-gatherer groups have shown that they often secure comfortable living with just 3 to 5 hours of work per day. The rest of the time is for leisure, for sleeping, for talking, for playing with children, for telling stories around the fire. It's a vision of life that stands in stark contrast to the grueling, dawn-to-dusk labor of the early farmer. You have to imagine that if you could show an Ice Age hunter a vision of a medieval peasant's life, they wouldn't see progress. They'd see a nightmare of endless, back-breaking work for a meager bowl of porridge. They'd probably look at the farmer getting up at dawn to milk a goat and think, "You chose that life? On purpose?" This relative affluence wasn't an accident. It wasn't because the Ice Age world was some kind of natural Eden, a pre-packaged paradise. It was because your people were not passive recipients of nature's bounty. You were active participants in creating it. You were not just foragers. You were the first land managers, the original gardeners, the original landscapers. You used your deep knowledge to actively shape the world around you, encouraging it to produce more of the things you needed, creating a world of sustainable abundance. Your most powerful tool for this was not a stone axe, but fire. We've already seen how fire provides warmth, light, and a way to cook. But in the hands of your people, it was also a sophisticated land management tool. You practice what some call fire stick farming. On a regular cycle, perhaps every few years, you would systematically set controlled, low-intensity fires in certain areas of the landscape. You watch as a line of fire creeps through the underbrush of a forest, not as a destructive wildfire, but as a cleansing agent. The effects of this are transformative. The fire clears out the dense, tangled undergrowth and deadfall, making it easier to walk and to hunt. It returns nutrients to the soil, promoting a surge of new growth. And crucially, it creates a mosaic of different habitats. In the forests, these regular burns favor large, fire-resistant trees that produce valuable food, like oaks with their calorie-rich acorns, and nut-bearing hazel and chestnut trees. By clearing out the competition, you are, in effect, tending a wild orchard that covers an entire valley. Out on the plains, the fire clears away old, dead grasses and promotes the growth of fresh, tender green shoots. And what do these shoots attract? Grazing animals, deer, bison, wild cattle, horses, the very animals you hunt, are drawn to these newly enriched pastures. You are not just chasing herds. You are creating the conditions that draw the herds to you. You are farming animals without building a single fence. You are shaping the landscape to make it a more productive and predictable place to live. This management extends beyond fire. You actively tend to the plants you value. Near the camp, there might be a dense patch of wild figs or date palms. Your people would clear away competing weeds and vines, prune dead branches, and protect the trees from browse animals, ensuring a reliable harvest year after year. When you are out gathering, you practice a form of selective harvesting that is essentially horticulture. As you collect the seeds from wild grasses, the ancestors of wheat and barley, to leave some on the stalk and to deliberately scatter some seeds in a particularly sunny, well-watered spot on your way back to camp. When you dig for starchy tubers, to leave part of the root system in the ground so the plant will grow back, sometimes even replanting a piece of it to ensure future growth. You are a gardener whose garden is the entire landscape. This idea of a deep, reciprocal relationship with the environment is something many modern indigenous cultures call concentric ecology. It's a worldview that doesn't see a sharp division between humans and nature. The plants, the animals, the rivers, the rocks, they are not just resources to be extracted. They are relatives, other than human persons with whom you are in a constant, dynamic relationship of mutual obligation. You take from the world, but you also give back through ritual, through respect, and through the careful, knowledgeable tending of the land that ensures its continued health and abundance. The archaeological evidence for this sophisticated management is growing. For a long time, it was assumed that the use of cereals only began with the invention of agriculture. But at a site in Israel called Ohalo II, which was occupied 23,000 years ago, archaeologists found a stunning array of evidence. They unearthed the remains of a half-dozen grass huts, a central hearth, and the preserved remains of over 140 different species of plants. Among them were wild emmer wheat, wild barley, and wild almonds, alongside grinding stones used to process them into flour. These were people living at the height of the last ice age, yet they were systematically harvesting, processing, and eating the very wild grains that would, 10,000 years later, become the foundation of agriculture. They already had the knowledge. They just hadn't yet made the choice to domesticate the plants and themselves along with them. The result of this knowledgeable management was a diet of incredible richness and diversity. Forget the stereotype of just eating mammoth meat. Your diet is far more varied and nutritious than that of an early farmer who might subsist on a monotonous and nutrient-poor diet of wheat porridge and whatever else they could get. One day you might be eating roasted bison, the next, grilled salmon fresh from the river. You supplement this with roasted birds, turtle eggs, and shellfish from a nearby marsh. Your diet is rich in plant foods, the flour from ground seeds, the sweet pulp of fruits, the reliable energy of roasted acorns and chestnuts, a variety of leafy greens, and the starchy goodness of cattail roots and water lilies. This is the original paleo diet, but far more authentic and, yes, it includes plenty of carbs. This incredible diversity is your safety net. It makes your food supply incredibly resilient. If a disease sweeps through the bison herds one year, you can shift your focus to hunting deer or fishing. If a late frost damages the berry crop, you have stores of nuts to fall back on. You are not dependent on a single resource, and therefore you are not vulnerable to a single point of failure. Archaeologists and paleoanthropologists still debate the relative importance of meat versus plants in the Paleolithic diet, but the evidence increasingly points to a flexible, omnivorous strategy that varied greatly depending on the local environment and season. Your pantry isn't a cupboard in a hut. It's the entire valley, and how to unlock every one of its secrets. The only downside is that a lot of other animals also consider it their pantry, which keeps things interesting. So, you are not a desperate survivor. You are a competent, knowledgeable member of a successful and resilient culture. You live in a world that you actively help to create, a landscape that is both wild and, in a sense, gardened. You have time for leisure, for family, for art, for story. Life is not a constant struggle. It is, for the most part, good. And this simple fact presents us with one of the greatest paradoxes in all of human history. If life as a hunter-gatherer was so successful, so sustainable, and so affluent in its own terms, why did it ever end? Why would anyone voluntarily give up this life of variety, leisure, and resilience to take on the backbreaking, monotonous labor of farming? Why trade a diet of 100 different foods for a dependency on one or two crops that could fail at any time? Why trade the freedom of mobility for a life tethered to a single plot of land? The transition to agriculture can no longer be seen as an obvious, self-evident leap of progress. It must be viewed as a choice, a trade-off, and one with consequences that would reshape our societies, our bodies, and our very way of thinking about the world. The story of progress is not a simple, straight line upwards. It's a complex, tangled path with many losses to weigh against the gains. Before we get to that great turning point, we have to appreciate the depth of the world that was left behind. A world where humans were not masters of nature, but its clever and successful partners. The world you inhabit is a world of competence, not desperation. This success is built upon the library of memory we just explored, but knowledge alone isn't enough. To be an effective partner with the landscape, you need the right hardware. You need technology. And when we talk about the technology of our ancient ancestors, we must once again throw out the tired, cartoonish image of a man in a leopard skin toga holding a giant, crude club. The reality of your toolkit is infinitely more sophisticated. It is a world of precision, efficiency, and elegant design, born from a deep understanding of physics and materials science. This is not just craft, it is engineering. To appreciate the mind of the maker, you have to understand that creating a tool is not a single action, but a process. Archaeologists call this the chain operatoire, the operational sequence. It's the entire life history of an object, from the initial thought to its final discard. It begins with a need. I need a sharp knife to butcher this animal. This leads to a plan. You must first acquire the right raw material. You can't just use any rock. You must travel, perhaps for a day, to a specific quarry where, there is a seam of high quality, fine-grained flint. You select a core, a nodule of this stone, judging its quality by its weight, its color, the way it sounds when you tap it. Then comes the manufacturing process itself. You return to the camp, sit down, and begin to work. This process of turning a rough stone into a precision instrument is not instinct. It is a highly developed skill, a body of technical knowledge passed down from one generation to the next. You didn't learn this from a book. You learned it from the age of 5, watching your father or your uncle, imitating their movements, practicing on discarded flakes, and listening to their instruction. You spent years learning to feel the way the stone will fracture, to understand the geometry of force. This is cultural transmission at its most fundamental, the passing on of complex technical knowledge through teaching and imitation. Let's watch this process unfold. The heart of your toolkit is the stone blade, and the art of making it is called flint knapping. You take your chosen core of flint and, using a hard hammer stone, you perform the first rough shaping, knocking off the outer cortex to create a striking platform. Then you switch tools. You pick up a billet, a hammer made of a softer material like deer antler or dense wood. This gives you more control, allowing for a softer, more distributed impact. You hold the core in one hand, visualize the blade you want to create within it, and with a swift, perfectly angled blow from the antler billet, you strike the platform. Crack! A long, straight, beautiful flake with a razor-sharp edge detaches from the core. Its edge is sharper than a modern surgical scalpel. This is not luck. It is a deep, intuitive understanding of fracture mechanics. You knew the precise angle and the exact amount of force needed to guide the shockwave through the stone to produce the exact shape you intended. At its most sophisticated, this process reached an incredible level of forethought, such as in the Levallois technique, which was practiced by both Neanderthals and our own direct ancestors. This method involved meticulously pre-shaping the core into a specific form, like a turtle shell, before striking off one single, perfect, finished tool in a final, decisive blow. It's like 3D printing in reverse. You have the ideal form in your mind, and your job is to subtract all the parts of the stone that aren't it. There's no undo button, no room for error. During the Upper Paleolithic, this technology became even more efficient with the development of blade cores. From a single, carefully prepared cylindrical core, a skilled knapper could produce dozens of standardized, long, parallel-sided blades. These were the interchangeable parts of the Ice Age. A blade could be used as is for a knife. 2 or 3 could be set into a groove in a piece of bone or wood, using that birch bark pitch we talked about to create a barbed harpoon point. A smaller bladelet could be trimmed and hafted onto a shaft to serve as an arrow tip. This was a modular, efficient system for producing the building blocks of a diverse and adaptable toolkit. And this is where the real genius of your technology lies, not just in the single objects, but in the combination of materials to create composite tools. Standalone tools are useful, but composite tools are transformative. Consider the spear. A simple fire-hardened wooden spear is a formidable weapon. A spear with a hafted stone point is even deadlier. But the great technological leap was in how you threw it. In your hand, you hold a tool called an atlatl or a spear thrower. It's deceptively simple. A stick, perhaps 1.5 feet long, with a handle at one end and a small spur or hook at the other. You rest the butt of your spear against this hook. When you throw, the atlatl acts as a lever, an artificial extension of your arm. It radically increases the arc of your throw, multiplying the force and velocity you can impart to the spear. It's the difference between throwing a rock with your hand and launching it with a sling. A spear thrown with an atlatl can travel further, faster, and with far greater penetrating power than one thrown by hand. It allows you to hunt large, dangerous animals like bison or mammoth from a safer distance. It is a masterpiece of applied physics, a simple-looking object that represents a profound understanding of mechanical advantage. An even more complex system is the bow and arrow. The exact timeline for its invention is still a subject of intense debate among archaeologists, with some evidence from sites like Sibita Cave in South Africa pushing its origins back as far as 60,000 years ago, but it became widespread much later. A bow is a machine for storing and releasing energy. To build one requires a whole new level of material science. You need to select a piece of wood that has both tensile strength, the ability to resist being pulled apart, and compressive strength, the ability to resist being squeezed. Yew wood is a classic choice, as its heartwood resists compression while its sapwood resists tension. You have to carve it carefully, tillering it so that it bends in a perfect, uniform curve. The string might be made from twisted animal sinew or plant fibers. The arrow itself is a complex aerodynamic system with a sharp point, a straight shaft, and fletching made from feathers to provide stability in flight. The bow and arrow is not a single tool. It is an integrated weapons system, and its invention revolutionized hunting and, eventually, warfare. Of course, to make any of these composite tools, you need to be able to join different parts together. This requires adhesives and bindings. Your glue is made from natural sources. You know how to boil down animal hides and bones to create a strong collagen-based glue. You know how to heat birch bark in a sealed container to distill a sticky, waterproof black tar. You mix these resins with beeswax to control their viscosity and powdered ochre as a filler. Your bindings are made from the sinews of animals, the long tendons that run down their legs and back. When you wrap a stone point to a spear shaft with fresh sinew and let it dry, the sinew shrinks, creating a bond that is incredibly tight and strong. You are a chemist and a mechanical engineer, using the world around you as your laboratory and hardware store. And we must remember that what we find in the archaeological record is only a fraction of your full toolkit. Stone and bone survive for millennia, but wood, hide, and plant fiber rarely do. You almost certainly used nets, woven from plant fiber cordage, to catch fish and birds in huge numbers. You used snares to catch small game. You had bags made of leather, baskets woven from reeds, and clothing stitched from exquisitely tanned hides. The stone tools we find are just the durable skeleton of a rich and varied technological world that was mostly biodegradable. It's just after 8 a.m. here in Ho Chi Minh City now, the time many of us are trying to engineer a decent cup of coffee to start the day. It's humbling to realize that tens of thousands of years ago, people with the same brains as ours were already mastering fracture mechanics and advanced projectile physics, all before breakfast. This incredible toolkit was not the invention of a single, brilliant genius. It was the product of a slow, steady, iterative process of innovation that unfolded over thousands of generations. It's the longest-running open-source design project in human history. One generation perfected the hand axe. The next figured out how to attach it to a handle. 100 generations later, someone discovered the principle of the atlatl. Each generation inherited the accumulated knowledge of all who came before and then made their own small contributions, their own tweaks and improvements, which were then passed on to their children. This is cultural evolution in action, a testament to the power of teaching and the steady accumulation of shared knowledge. The tools you hold in your hand are not just inert objects. They are crystallized ideas. They are the physical manifestation of your people's collective intelligence, the deep memory of your ancestors made tangible. They are what allow you to be a successful hunter, a competent manager of your landscape, and a resilient member of a society that has mastered the art of living well in a challenging world. Your technology is so successful, in fact, that it affords you something that many later societies would lose. Time. Time to do more than just survive. Time to create things that are not just useful, but also beautiful. Time to make music. Your toolkit is a testament to your intelligence and skill, a physical library of engineering knowledge. It allows you to live successfully within your landscape, but a life of pure, pragmatic utility is not a fully human life. Your mind, capable of such complex technical thought, does not simply turn off when the work is done. It seeks beauty, it craves expression, it finds rhythm in the world and desires to add its own voice to the chorus. The time afforded to you by your technological competence is not just empty time. It's time to fill the world with something new. It's time to make art. It's time to make music. Once again, you must push against the stereotype of a grim, silent past. Your world is not quiet. It is filled with the sound of the wind in the pines, the rush of the river, the calls of birds, the distant rumble of a mammoth herd. And mingling with these natural sounds is the sound of the human voice, singing, chanting, telling stories. But it's more than that. You have instruments. You have technology designed not to fill the stomach, but to fill the air with melody. Around the fire one evening, after the meal is done and the children are growing sleepy, one of the elders pulls out a small, slender object. It's a flute crafted from the hollow wing bone of a great griffin vulture. It is light, elegant, and polished smooth from years of handling. You watch as he brings it to his lips. The sound that emerges is breathtakingly clear and pure, a high, haunting melody that seems to hang in the cold night air, weaving through the crackle of the flames. He plays a tune that is as familiar to you as the shape of your mother's face, a song that tells a story of the changing seasons, or the journey of a spirit, or the simple joy of a successful hunt. This is not a fantasy. In the caves of southern Germany, like Hohlfels and Geissenklosterli, Archaeologists have unearthed the oldest musical instruments ever discovered. They have found multiple flutes, dating back more than 40,000 years. One, nearly complete, is made from a vulture's radius bone. It has 5 precisely carved finger holes and a V-shaped notch at one end that serves as a mouthpiece. This is not a simple whistle. This is a complex musical instrument, capable of playing a range of notes and scales, just like a modern flute. Replicas have been made, and they produce beautiful, resonant music. The people who made this were not just experimenting with sound. They understood acoustics. They were composers, musicians. Another flute from the same region was made from the ivory of a woolly mammoth. This represents an even greater technological feat. Mammoth ivory is not hollow. To create a flute from it, you must first split a piece of ivory lengthwise, painstakingly hollow out each half, and then glue them back together with a perfect, airtight seal, likely using those resin-based adhesives from your toolkit. This is an immense amount of work for something that isn't essential for survival in the strictest sense. It speaks to a deep-seated need for music, for art, for a form of expression that transcends the purely practical. What was this music for? We can only guess. Perhaps it was a key part of rituals. Its melodies used to induce a trance-like state or to accompany a shaman's journey to the spirit world. Perhaps it was used to tell stories, providing a dramatic soundtrack to the epic tales of heroes and animal spirits. Perhaps it was used to soothe a crying infant to sleep, or maybe it was just for fun, a way to pass the evening, to have a jam session around the fire. The answer is likely all of the above. It's a powerful reminder that these were people with a rich inner life, with a desire for beauty and communal celebration. And if they made flutes, they almost certainly made other instruments from materials that did not survive. Imagine drums made from hides stretched over wooden frames, their deep rhythms echoing through the valley. Imagine rattles made from dried gourds filled with pebbles, and the strange, haunting moan of a bull roarer. A flat piece of wood swung rapidly on a cord, cutting through the air during a ceremony. Your world was alive with music. Imagine being the first person to figure out how to make a drum. You're a cultural hero for about 10 minutes, and then for the rest of your life, it's just your cousin yelling, "Would you please stop banging on that thing? We're trying to get some sleep." This same spirit of sophisticated, adaptive design extends to your home. The caveman cliché is a profound misnomer. While caves and rock shelters were certainly used, they are, after all, excellent natural shelters. They were far from your only option. You were not a passive occupant of the landscape. You were an architect. You built homes that were resilient, flexible, and perfectly suited to your mobile lifestyle and the environment you inhabited. In the heart of the Ukrainian plains, where the winters were long and brutal and trees were scarce, archaeologists have found the remains of remarkable structures dating back some 15,000 years. At sites like Medjugorje, you built substantial, dome-shaped huts using the most impressive local resource available, the bones of woolly mammoths. These were not just crude piles. They were feats of engineering. The foundations were made from a ring of massive mammoth skulls and lower jaws, embedded in the ground for stability. The walls were a lattice of leg bones, shoulder blades, and pelvises interlocked in a complex, sturdy framework. Great, arching tusks were used to create the entranceways and support the roof, which was likely made of stitched hides. Inside, there were hearths for warmth and cooking. Some of these structures were enormous, up to 5 or 6 meters across. Building one would have required the coordinated effort of the entire group. This wasn't just a shelter. It was a statement, a monument of ingenuity. The interpretation of these mammoth bone structures is still debated. While some see them as highly functional long-term dwellings, others argue their elaborate, almost artistic construction and use of symbolically painted bones suggest they may have also served a primary ritual or ceremonial purpose. In other environments, or for seasons when you needed to be more mobile, your home was a masterpiece of lightweight, portable architecture. You lived in a conical tent, much like a teepee of the North American plains. The frame was made from a dozen or so long, straight poles of pine or birch, lashed together at the top. This frame was then covered by a tailored sheath of 15 to 20 reindeer or bison hides, carefully cut and stitched together with sinew thread. The bottom could be weighted down with stones to keep it secure against the wind. At the top, two flaps, like ears, could be adjusted with poles to control the smoke hole, allowing you to have a fire inside while keeping the rain and snow out. This design is brilliant in its simplicity and effectiveness. It is aerodynamic, standing firm against the fierce winds of the tundra. It is easy to heat with a small fire, and most importantly, it is portable. When it's time to follow the herds, your entire home can be dismantled in under an hour. The hides are folded up, the poles are bundled together, and everything is packed onto a travois, a simple A-frame sledge pulled by people or, later, by your dog companions, ready to be moved to the next campsite. This is not the architecture of poverty. It is the architecture of freedom. It is a home designed for a life of movement, a life of following the rhythm of the seasons rather than being tied to one single spot. Building your house out of locally sourced materials like mammoth bone is very impressive, of course. A key benefit is that your homeowners association can't complain about the construction because they are the homeowners association, and they're all related to you. The sophistication didn't end with the structure. The interior of your homes would have been made comfortable and organized. Floors might be paved with flat stone slabs or covered with insulating layers of grass and moss, and then topped with soft furs. Certain areas would be designated for sleeping, others for cooking or tool making. At the Medjugorje site, they even found mammoth skulls painted with red ochre and geometric patterns, suggesting a desire to create an aesthetically pleasing interior. You are creating a home, a place of comfort and identity, not just a shelter. And we must again consider the technologies that are almost invisible to archaeology but would have been utterly central to your life. The real unsung hero of your entire toolkit is string. Cordage, the simple act of twisting fibers together from plants like nettle or milkweed, or from the sinew of animals, to create thread and rope. The invention of string was a revolution on par with the control of fire. It is the technology that literally holds everything else together. Without string, you cannot lash a stone point to a spear. You cannot have a bow and arrow. You cannot stitch hides together for clothing or tents. You cannot make fishing lines or nets. You cannot weave a basket to carry the berries and roots you gather. You cannot make a snare to catch a rabbit. String is the foundational technology that enables almost all other composite tools and complex structures. The string revolution is perhaps the most important and least appreciated technological leap in human history. And with string comes weaving. You can weave baskets of all shapes and sizes, crucial for gathering and storage. You can weave mats to sleep on or to use as partitions in your dwelling. And you can likely weave textiles. While we have no direct evidence of Ice Age looms, we do have the famous Venus figurines, like the Venus of Willendorf. These small, carved female figures often have what appears to be a woven cap or an intricately braided hairstyle, suggesting that weaving and textiles were a known art. It's a hot, humid morning here in Saigon as I write this, and it makes you appreciate breathable fabrics. It's entirely possible you were weaving lightweight clothing from nettle fibers 25,000 years ago, which is good, because a full-body, mammoth hide suit would be a bit much in this kind of weather. So, your material world is rich and complex. It is a world filled with music, with ingeniously designed homes, and with a whole universe of woven goods that are now almost completely lost to us. You are not just a survivor. You are an engineer, an architect, a musician, and an artist. You have created a world that is not only functional but also comfortable, resilient, and beautiful. You have built a society with the knowledge to thrive and the technology to live well. The question that follows naturally is, how do you sustain it? How do you raise a child in this world and ensure that they inherit all of this vast, complex cultural knowledge? That is a story about the nature of family itself. You have now seen the world of our ancestors through the lens of their technology, their art, and their sophisticated relationship with the landscape. You've seen what they made and how they lived. But all of this, the engineering, the music, the architecture, the ecological knowledge, would be for nothing if it could not be passed on. The long-term survival of your people depends on the most critical project of all, raising a new generation and transmitting your entire culture into their minds. How do you raise a child in a world without schools, without books, without a single written word? The answer lies in a social structure so profoundly communal that it challenges our modern ideas of what a family is. Your childhood is nothing like a modern one. There are no classrooms, no scheduled lessons, no digital screens. Your playground is the camp and the landscape beyond. Your teachers are every single person in your community. Your education is a seamless, lifelong apprenticeship in the art of being human. From the moment you are born, you are immersed in a world of constant social connection. You are rarely alone. As an infant, you are held, carried in a sling against your mother's body, and passed from one loving pair of arms to the next. You are soothed by a multitude of voices, your senses filled with the sights, sounds, and smells of communal life. This creates a bedrock of security, a deep-seated knowledge that you belong, that you are an essential part of a greater whole. Play is your primary form of learning. It is not frivolous or a waste of time. It is your most important work. You watch the adults, and you mimic everything they do. You and the other children stage mock hunts, throwing small, blunted wooden spears at pine cones. You build miniature shelters from twigs and leaves. You sit beside your mother and pretend to stitch hides with a blunt bone needle. You follow your older cousins into the woods and learn to identify the tracks of a fox, to find the sweet, edible sap of a birch tree. No one sits you down for a formal lesson. You learn by watching, by imitating, and by doing. Your play is a low-stakes rehearsal for the skills you will one day need to survive. It's just after 8 a.m. on a Friday here as I write this. For many children today, that means the start of a school day with bells and timetables. For you, an Ice Age child, Friday morning school is a practical, hands-on lesson in something like how to not get stepped on by a woolly rhino while you're looking for berries. This immersive, learn-by-doing education is made possible by a system that anthropologists call alloparenting. which simply means that individuals other than the biological parents play a significant role in caring for the young. In your world, it means it takes a village to raise a child is not a sentimental proverb. It is a fundamental survival strategy. Human babies are born uniquely helpless. Compared to a foal that can stand within an hour of birth, a human infant is a fragile, dependent creature for years. Our large brains require a long period of development outside the womb. This long childhood places an immense energetic burden on the mother. It would be incredibly difficult, if not impossible, for a single mother or even an isolated nuclear couple to provide the constant care a child needs while also performing the essential daily tasks of gathering food, processing it, making tools, and maintaining the camp. Cooperative breeding is our species' solution to this problem. As a child, your mother is your primary caregiver, but she is not your only one. When she needs to go gather roots and berries, she might leave you in the care of your grandmother or your aunt. When you are old enough to toddle around the camp, your older siblings and cousins are your constant companions, watching over you, playing with you, and keeping you out of the fire. When your father is away on a multi-day hunt, your uncle might be the one to show you how to fletch a small arrow or to tell you a story. You are raised by a network of care. You have a dozen parents, a dozen sources of affection, protection, and knowledge. This system is a win-win for everyone. For you, the child, it provides a rich, stimulating, and incredibly secure social environment. For your mother, it frees her up to contribute effectively to the group's economy. For the adolescents and older children, it provides essential practice in caregiving, preparing them for their own future roles as parents. And for the group as a whole, it weaves a dense web of interdependence and shared investment in the next generation, strengthening the social bonds that are essential for survival. It's the ultimate babysitting co-op. You never have to frantically search for a sitter because you live with about 10 of them. The main difference is that they are also your toughest critics. Oh, you're letting the baby chew on a mammoth bone? My sister never did that back in the day. This strategy of cooperative breeding, championed by anthropologists like Sarah Blaffer-Hrdy, is now seen as one of the key reasons our species was so successful, allowing us to raise more of our slow-maturing, big-brain children to adulthood. Within this network of care, one group holds a place of unique importance: the elders. In a society without writing, the elders are not a dependent burden. They are the group's most precious resource. They are the living libraries. Their minds hold the accumulated knowledge of a lifetime of experience, an archive of information that is vital to the group's long-term survival. You look at your grandfather sitting by the fire. He can no longer chase a bison or draw a heavy bow. But his value has not diminished. He is the one who remembers the story of the great drought that happened when he was a boy. He knows where to find the hidden spring that never runs dry, a piece of knowledge that could save all of you if the rains fail. He is the master storyteller, the keeper of the myths, the genealogies, and the laws of your people. Your grandmother's hands may be gnarled with age, but she is the master botanist. She can identify hundreds of plants, and she knows the medicinal properties of each one. She knows which root can cure a fever, which poultice can draw the infection from a wound, which leaves can be made into a tea to calm a troubled spirit. This is knowledge that is not used every day, but when it is needed, it is the difference between life and death. Grandparents are your search engine, your history channel, and your medical dictionary all rolled into one. Their subscription is free. You just have to listen patiently to a lot of stories about how much bigger the mammoths were back in their day. This vital role is the basis for what anthropologists call the grandmother hypothesis. It's an attempt to answer a key evolutionary puzzle. Why do human females live so long past their reproductive years? This is extremely rare in the animal kingdom. From a purely reproductive standpoint, a postmenopausal female is no longer contributing to the gene pool. But the hypothesis argues that grandmothers provide a massive evolutionary advantage. By helping to feed and care for their daughters' children, they free up their daughters to have more babies sooner. A grandmother's wisdom and labor directly increase the survival rates of her grandchildren, thereby ensuring that her own genetic legacy continues. The presence of active, knowledgeable elders made the whole group more resilient. Your education, then, is a process of osmosis. It happens naturally, organically, through a lifetime of proximity and participation. You are not separated from the world of adults. You are at the center of it. You learn your culture's deepest values not from a lecture, but by observing how people treat each other, how food is shared, how disputes are resolved. The rules of fairness are not abstract principles. They are what you see practiced every day. The exact role of men versus women in teaching specific skills is debated, but a general pattern often emerges where women were primary transmitters of knowledge about gathering, plant processing, domestic crafts, and medicine, while men often taught the skills of hunting, tool making, and long-distance navigation. You learn it all by watching, listening, and eventually doing. Your final exam is not a written test. It is the simple, gradual process of becoming a competent, contributing adult yourself. The day you can nap your own flint blade, the day you can find your way back to camp from a full day's walk, the day you can calm a crying baby that isn't your own. These are your graduation ceremonies. You have become a functioning node in the great social network of your people. This system of communal care and education by imitation is the engine that drives cultural continuity. It is how the sophisticated knowledge of the toolmaker, the deep wisdom of the land manager, and the soulful art of the musician are safely transmitted from one generation to the next. It ensures that the library of memory is never lost, but is instead passed, warm and alive, into the minds of the children who are the future of your people. They now possess the hardware of technology and the software of ecological knowledge. But what gives it all meaning? What are the stories that shape their understanding of the world? That is a question of ritual, of myth, and of time itself. You are now a fully educated member of your society. Your mind contains the library of ecological knowledge. Your hands hold the skill of the engineer. And your heart beats with the rhythms of music and art. You know how to live in this world. But the final, and perhaps most important, question remains: what does it all mean? What is the framework that gives sense and purpose to your existence? The answer, like everything else, circles back to the fire. The hearth is not just the center of your camp. It is the center of your cosmos, the altar where the physical world and the spirit world meet. We have seen the fire as a tool for survival, but now you must see it as your people do, as a sacred, living entity. It is a mystery in the heart of your home. It consumes the solid world of wood and transforms it into the intangible world of heat, light, and smoke that rises to the heavens. It transforms the raw, bloody flesh of a kill into nourishing, life-sustaining food. This power of transformation gives fire a deeply magical and spiritual significance. It is a conduit, a gateway between states of being. And so, the hearth becomes more than a fireplace. It becomes an altar, an anchor that holds your people to a specific place through time. Archaeological evidence powerfully supports this idea. Some ancient hearths, like those in the Clazies River caves in South Africa, show signs of continuous or repeated use over tens of thousands of years. Imagine that. The spot where you sit, warming your hands, is the exact same spot where your ancestors 1,000 generations before you also sat. Each layer of ash beneath you is a compressed history book containing the microscopic remains of every meal eaten, every tool made, every story told around this very fire. To sit at the hearth is to be in the physical presence of your ancestors. You are not just in a camp. You are living within a monument created by the accumulated actions of your own lineage. This connection is made even more profound by your people's burial practices. When someone dies, they do not vanish from your world. The dead are often buried right here, within the living space of the camp, under the floor of the shelter, frequently close to the warmth and light of the hearth. This isn't a sign of disrespect or a lack of hygiene. It's a powerful statement about the nature of community and death. The deceased are not exiled to a separate, lonely place. They are kept close, still part of the family, still warmed by the fire. Their spirits still present in the daily life of the group. Often, their bodies are sprinkled with red ochre powder before burial. This pigment, the color of blood, is a potent symbol of life, suggesting a belief in an afterlife, a rebirth, or a continuation of the spirit in another form. The fire warms the living and the dead alike, binding the generations together. This sacred space is where the software of your culture runs, the world of myth. The stories told around the fire are not simple fables or entertainment. They are your reality. In a world without writing, myth is the grand, unified theory of everything. It is your science, your history, your law, and your religion, all woven into a single, cohesive narrative. The stories explain how the world was created, perhaps sung into existence by ancient creator beings. They tell of how a culture hero, a trickster like Raven or a wise figure like Prometheus, stole fire from the gods and gave it to humankind. They recount the great hunts of your ancestors, which are not just historical records but moral lessons in courage, cooperation, and respect for the animals that give you life. To understand how you perceive this, we can look to an idea from modern Aboriginal Australian cultures, the concept of the dream time, or what anthropologist W.E.H. Stanner called the everywhen. For you, the past is not a dead country. The mythic time of creation is not something that happened once, long ago. It is an eternal dimension that runs parallel to your own. The great creator spirits are not gone. They are simply dormant, their presence still tangible in the landscape. A strangely shaped rock is not just a rock. It is the fossilized body of a mythic serpent. A river is not just a body of water. It was carved by the journey of a great ancestor. By performing rituals, by chanting the songs, by painting the symbols on your body or on a cave wall, by dancing the steps that mimic the creator beings, you can reactivate this mythic power. You step out of ordinary time and into the everywhen, reenacting the sacred events and, in so doing, helping to renew the entire world. Your history is not just something you learn, it's something you participate in. It's far more exciting than our version, which often seems to be about tax codes and political treaties. Your history has giant serpents, sun-stealing ravens, and heroes who can talk to animals. This deep, mythic understanding of the world is likely what is being expressed in the magnificent art found on the walls of deep caves like Lascaux or Chauvet. The interpretation of this art is perhaps the most contentious area in Paleolithic studies. While some scholars see it as a form of hunting magic meant to ensure a successful hunt, others, like David Lewis Williams, argue compellingly that these deep, dark, silent caves were seen as membranes between the human world and the spirit world. The art, they argue, depicts the visions of shamans who traveled into these other realms in altered states of consciousness, perhaps induced by sensory deprivation, chanting, or hallucinogenic plants. The paintings are not just pictures of animals. They are pictures of animal spirits, snapshots from another reality. This mythic, cyclical worldview also shapes your very experience of time. In our modern world, we live by the clock and the calendar. Time is linear, abstract, and relentless. It is a ruler we measure our lives against, divided into uniform, interchangeable units: seconds, hours, weeks, years. We have deadlines to meet, schedules to keep. It's just before 8 a.m. here in Ho Chi Minh City, a time dictated entirely by this abstract grid. Your conception of time is completely different. It is not linear, it is cyclical, and it is not abstract. It is concrete and event-based. Time is the rhythm of the world around you. There is the cycle of day and night, marked by the rising and setting of the sun. There is the cycle of the moon, its waxing and waning a familiar, reliable measure. There is the grand cycle of the seasons, marked by the shifting stars, the first frost, the last snow, the arrival of the migratory birds, the fruiting of the berry bushes. You don't think this will happen on October 23rd. You think this will happen when the geese fly south. Or we will move camp after the acorns have been harvested. Events are anchored to other real, tangible events, not to an arbitrary number. Your social life also marks time. Your personal history is a sequence of significant moments. You were born in the year of the Great Flood. You killed your first deer 3 summers after your cousin was married. Your memory, and the collective memory of your group, is the calendar. This makes time feel deeply personal and meaningful, a river of experience rather than a sterile, empty container. It's a much more poetic way to live, though it would probably be a nightmare for project management. Let's have the meeting to plan the big hunt when the moon is a sliver in the sky, after the reindeer have passed through the northern valley. This deep connection to the cycles of life is perhaps even recorded in some of your artifacts. The Ashango bone, a 20,000-year-old piece of baboon fibula found in the Congo, is incised with a series of ordered notches. While its function is debated, one compelling theory is that it is a lunar calendar, a device for tracking the phases of the moon. Given the close link between the lunar cycle and female menstrual cycles, it may even be a record of cyclical, biological time, a form of knowledge of immense importance to your people. Your life, then, is woven into a rich tapestry of meaning. The hearth anchors you in place and connects you to your ancestors. Myth provides the stories that explain the universe and your place within it. And a cyclical understanding of time embeds your existence into the very rhythms of the natural world. You are not a solitary individual adrift in a meaningless cosmos. You are a vital link in an ancient chain of being, warmed by the same fire as those who came before you, living out the same sacred stories under the same eternal wheeling stars. This profound sense of connection to the generations past and the world around you creates a deep feeling of belonging. It is this powerful sense of community, of being one family under the stars, that allows you to do something truly remarkable next, to invite another species, another kind of being, into the circle of your firelight and make them part of your family. The sacred fire at the heart of your camp warms your human family. The myths and stories bind you together, creating a community that stretches back through time to the first ancestors. Your world is one of deep connection, a web of kinship that includes your people and the landscape you inhabit. Now, you are about to do something extraordinary. You are going to expand the very definition of your family. You are going to invite another species into the warm circle of the firelight. At the edge of the light, just beyond the reach of the flames, you see them. A pair of yellow eyes glowing in the dark. A wolf. For millennia, the relationship between your people and the wolves has been one of wary respect and tense competition. You are the two apex predators of this Ice Age world. You are both intelligent, cooperative pack hunters. You pursue the same prey, the reindeer, the bison, the horse. You are rivals, circling each other in a dance of mutual avoidance. But something is beginning to change. The process does not begin with you, the human, snatching a wolf cub from its den to raise as a pet. It begins with the wolves themselves. It is a process of self-domestication. Most wolves are too aggressive, too fearful to linger near the scent of man and fire. They are driven off or killed. But within any population, there is variation. Some wolves are bolder than others, or rather, they are less fearful, more curious, more socially intelligent. These are the ones who dare to linger at the edge of the camp, drawn by the irresistible smell of roasting meat. They learn that your camp is a reliable source of food. You leave behind the bones and scraps from your kills, a treasure trove of fat and protein. The wolves that are best able to tolerate your presence, the ones that don't snarl and attack but wait patiently, are the ones who get the reward. They survive the lean winter months better than their wilder cousins. They have more pups, and they pass on their genetic predisposition for tameness, for a shorter flight distance, a lower stress response to their offspring. Over many generations, a distinct population of camp wolves begins to emerge. They are still wolves, but they are on a different evolutionary path. They are choosing you as much as you are choosing them. Eventually, this tentative, garbage disposal relationship blossoms into a true partnership. Your people, being the keen observers of animal behavior that you are, begin to recognize the value of having these wolves around. They become your sentinels. Their senses of hearing and smell are exponentially more powerful than yours. They can hear the stealthy approach of a cave lion or smell a rival hunting band from a kilometer away. Their low growl or sharp bark becomes your first line of defense, an unparalleled early warning system that allows your own group to sleep more soundly at night. Then comes the great leap, the cooperative hunt. A small pack of your camp wolves, now more trusting and attuned to your movements, fans out ahead of your hunting party. They can track a wounded animal for days, their noses locked onto a scent trail that is invisible to you. They can chase a herd of reindeer, harry their flanks, and isolate a weaker individual, holding it at bay until you can catch up and use your deadly projectile weapons, your atlatls and spears, to make the kill. It is a partnership of devastating effectiveness. The wolves are better at tracking and cornering. You are better at killing from a safe distance. Afterwards, the kill is shared. You take the prime meat and the hides. The wolves gorge themselves on the rest. Both species benefit immensely. You both eat more regularly and with less risk than you would alone. It's the ultimate mixed species team-up. This is not a relationship of master and servant. You do not own these animals in the modern sense. They are not property. They are companions, allies, partners. They are, in a very real sense, another kind of person in your extended, kin-based community. They sleep near your fire. They help you hunt. They guard your children. And you, in turn, provide them with food, protection, and companionship. This deep, mutualistic bond is the birth of the dog, and the genetic evidence, while complex, places this birth firmly in the Ice Age world of the hunter-gatherer. The split between the ancestors of modern dogs and wolves happened somewhere between 27,000 and 40,000 years ago, long before the first farmer ever planted a seed. The archaeological record provides beautiful, poignant evidence of this profound emotional bond. At a site called Bonn Oberkassel in Germany, dated to around 14,200 years ago, the grave of a man, a woman, and a dog was discovered. They were all buried together, with care and with ritual. Analysis of the dog's teeth showed that as a puppy, it had suffered from a severe case of distemper, a viral illness that would have caused high fevers and seizures. It would have been incredibly sick. It could not have survived on its own. The only way it lived to adulthood was if the humans cared for it, nursed it, and fed it through its long illness. This was not a tool to be discarded when broken. This was a beloved member of the family who was mourned and buried with the same honor as the people who loved it. Including a dog in the sacred space of a burial, alongside your human family and close to the hearth, is the ultimate statement of belonging. More recent science has revealed just how deep this co-evolution goes. One fascinating fringe tidbit is the theory of the co-evolution of the gaze. A 2019 study in Japan found that dogs possess a specific facial muscle, the levator anguli oculi medialis, which allows them to raise their inner eyebrow, creating the expressive, infant-like, puppy dog eyes look. Their closest relatives, the wolves, do not have this muscle. The theory is that early dogs evolved this trait specifically to elicit a nurturing response from humans. It hijacks our parental instincts, making us want to care for them. For tens of thousands of years, they have been selectively breeding themselves to better communicate with us, to push our emotional buttons. That sad look your dog gives you when you're eating dinner isn't just a trick. It's a 30,000-year-old evolutionary masterstroke, and it works every single time. It's just after 8 a.m. on this Friday morning here in Ho Chi Minh City, and as the city comes to life, you can see this ancient bond being reenacted everywhere. People are out walking their dogs, a familiar scene in any city in the world. It's an incredible thread of continuity to think that this specific, unique, cross-species friendship began so long ago around a Paleolithic campfire between two of the planet's most intelligent predators who decided it was better to be family than to be rivals. This willingness to expand the circle of kinship, to create a cooperative partnership based on mutual trust and shared goals, is a hallmark of your people's social intelligence. You have created a community that includes not just your extended human family, but another species entirely. This alliance made you both more successful than you ever could have been apart. with your canine companions at your side, acting as trackers, sentinels, and friends. You were able to spread further and adapt to new environments more effectively than ever before. You walked out of Africa and across the entire globe, and at your side, every step of the way, was your oldest friend. This capacity for large-scale cooperation, for shared purpose that transcends the individual, is one of the defining characteristics of our species. It is what allowed you to bring down a woolly mammoth. It is what allowed you to create a shared library of memory. It is what allowed you to welcome another predator into your family. And it is this very same capacity that you will now need for your most ambitious project yet. You are about to use your collective power not just to hunt or to build a home, but to build something that should be impossible for a mobile people. Something that speaks to a depth of ritual, myth, and shared memory that is truly staggering. You are about to build a temple. The circle of your family has expanded to include another species, your canine companion. Your community is bound by shared memory, by myth, and by the sacred warmth of the hearth. You have demonstrated a capacity for cooperation, for social organization, and for shared purpose that allowed you to thrive and spread across the globe. And now, your people will harness this collective power to do something that, by all the standards of our modern historical models, should be impossible. You will gather together not just to hunt or to move camp, but to carve a new reality into the very bedrock of a mountain. You are about to build a temple. Your journey takes you to a rounded hilltop in southeastern Anatolia, in what is now modern-day Turkey. The year is somewhere around 10,000 BCE. The last great ice age is ending, and the world is slowly warming. The landscape around you is not a lush paradise, but a rolling, grassy steppe, dotted with groves of wild pistachio and almond trees. The people here, your people, are mobile hunter-gatherers. There are no villages, no towns, no cities. No one has yet planted a seed with the intention of farming. No one has shaped a pot from clay. The use of metal is thousands of years in the future. The people here live as we have described, in small, mobile bands, following the herds of gazelle, harvesting wild grasses, and carrying their entire world in their memories and their lightweight toolkits. And on this hill, which in the future will be called Göbekli Tepe, or Potbelly Hill, they are undertaking a construction project of staggering scale and sophistication. As you stand on the summit, you see not a camp, but a series of great circular enclosures. At the center of each circle stand two enormous pillars of limestone, and ringing them are more pillars, linked by low stone walls. These are not rough, unworked stones. They are massive, T-shaped monoliths, some standing nearly 20 feet tall and weighing up to 20 tons. They have been quarried from the limestone bedrock nearby, carved with breathtaking precision using nothing more than handheld flint tools, and then somehow transported hundreds of meters up the hill and levered into their upright positions. According to our traditional timeline of human progress, this simply shouldn't be here. This is monumental architecture, 6,000 years before Stonehenge, 7,000 years before the Great Pyramid of Giza, being built by people who, supposedly, shouldn't have had the social organization or technological motivation to even attempt such a thing. You walk closer, your hand reaching out to touch the cool stone. You realize these are not just pillars. They are highly stylized, abstract sculptures of human figures. The cross of the T is a head in profile, devoid of features. The long shaft of the pillar is the body. On the sides of some, you can see the faint, delicate carvings of arms, bent at the elbows, with long, slender fingers wrapping around the front, as if holding a robe or their own belly. Some even have depictions of loincloths made from fox pelts. These silent, imposing figures are your ancestors, your gods, or perhaps spirit beings, gathered in a silent, eternal assembly. It's the world's first congregation, carved from living rock, and their bodies are covered in art. The surfaces of the pillars are teeming with masterfully carved, high-relief images of animals. But these are not the animals you eat every day. You see very few gazelles or wild cattle. Instead, these are powerful, dangerous, and symbolically charged creatures. You see snarling lions, bristling wild boars, cunning foxes, and long, sinuous snakes. You see vultures, their wings outstretched, and menacing scorpions with their tails poised to strike. This is not a menu, it is a mythology. This is the cast of characters from the dream time, the animal spirits and powerful forces that inhabit your spiritual world, the one you hear about in the stories around the fire. Göbekli Tepe is what happens when that invisible world of myth and ritual is made terrifyingly, beautifully manifest in stone. The sheer scale of the labor is difficult to comprehend. Imagine being one of the builders. You are a hunter. Your life is one of movement. But for a certain time of the year, you and your band travel to this special hill. Here, you meet with hundreds of other people from dozens of other bands, people you may only see at these gatherings. Together, you work. You descend into the limestone quarry. With flint picks and stone mauls, you chip away at the bedrock, slowly, painstakingly freeing a 16-ton block of stone. You carve the reliefs of the animals, a process requiring immense skill and artistic vision. Then comes the logistical nightmare. How do you move it? You have no wheels, no cranes, no domesticated beasts of burden. You have ropes made of hide and plant fiber. You have wooden levers and rollers, and you have human muscle. The coordinated effort of hundreds of people working together with a shared plan and a shared purpose would be required to haul these monoliths up the hill and erect them in their sockets. This is not the work of a single small band. This is a regional religious project. And now we come to the strangest part of this incredible story. After one of these magnificent stone circles was completed and used for a period of time, perhaps for a few generations, perhaps for centuries, your people would do something utterly baffling to the modern mind. They would bury it deliberately. They would fill the entire enclosure, a space the size of a tennis court, with tons of rubble. This fill consisted of limestone fragments, broken flint tools, and vast quantities of animal bones, mostly gazelle and aurochs, the remains of enormous feasts that must have taken place during the gatherings. And once the old temple was completely interred, a new one would be built nearby, or sometimes on top of the old one. This cycle of building, using, and then burying was repeated for over 1,000 years, creating the artificial potbelly of the hill that gives the site its name. The reason for the intentional burial of the enclosures at Göbekli Tepe is one of its greatest mysteries. Archaeologists still debate its purpose. Was it a ritual act of killing or decommissioning a sacred space once its spiritual power had faded? Was it a way of preserving it, protecting it for the future? Or was it part of a cyclical cosmology, a belief in the death and rebirth of the world itself? mirrored in the burial and new construction of their most sacred site. Whatever the reason, it implies a deep, continuous ritual memory. The people who built the later enclosures knew the exact locations of the ones buried beneath their feet. They were building on a landscape that was already ancient and layered with their own history. It's the most elaborate spring cleaning in history. This temple is getting a bit cluttered with all these powerful shamanistic visions. Let's just bury it under 300 tons of feasting debris and start fresh next door. Some researchers, looking for deeper meaning, point to the sky. There is compelling evidence that the enclosures are not randomly oriented. The two central pillars in some circles seem to form a gateway aligned with specific points on the horizon, possibly marking the rising or setting of important stars like Sirius or constellations. One fringe theory suggests that one of the pillars, with its carving of a vulture and a scorpion, is a celestial map, a snapshot of the sky from nearly 13,000 years ago, possibly commemorating a catastrophic comet impact that triggered a brief return to Ice Age conditions known as the Younger Dryas. It's a tantalizing idea that this temple was not just for earthly rituals, but it was also a celestial observatory, a place to connect the world of humanity with the world of the cosmos. The implications of Göbekli Tepe are profound. They completely reverse the traditional story of human civilization. The old model was simple and linear. First, people invented farming. This led to a surplus of food. This surplus allowed some people to stop farming and become specialists, like priests and builders. This led to permanent villages and towns. This settled, complex society then developed organized religion and built temples. Agriculture was seen as the necessary prerequisite for everything else. Göbekli Tepe flips this entire narrative on its head. Here we have a massive temple, a cathedral on a hill, built by mobile hunter-gatherers before the invention of agriculture. This suggests that it was the shared belief system, the powerful religious impulse, that came first. The need to organize and feed the hundreds of people who gathered periodically to build and feast at this central, sacred site may have been the very thing that spurred the invention of agriculture. People would have needed a reliable, predictable food source to support these massive communal projects. It is in the hills around Göbekli Tepe that we find the wild ancestors of our first domesticated crops, like einkorn wheat. The scenario is no longer farming creates temples, but the need for temples creates farming. The shared idea, the myth, the ritual, that was the primary engine of social change, not just a later byproduct of economic surplus. It's just before 8 a.m. here on a Friday in Ho Chi Minh City. The streets are already thick with the morning commute, people rushing to jobs in great concrete buildings. It's a fascinating thought that the very first human impulse to create large-scale, permanent structures might not have been for housing or for commerce, but for a shared belief in something mythic, a desire to create a sacred space to meet with the gods and the ancestors. Göbekli Tepe represents the stunning climax of the hunter-gatherer world. It is the ultimate expression of their social organization, their engineering skill, and their rich, symbolic culture. But it also stands on a precipice, at the dawn of the greatest transformation in human history. This world of cyclical time, of mobility, of intimate partnership with nature, is about to give way to something entirely new. What happens when the temple on the hill is replaced by the walled town in the valley? What happens when the wild garden of the landscape is replaced by the farmer's fenced-in field? We are about to witness the trade-offs, the triumphs, and the tragedies of the Neolithic Revolution. Your people stand on the hill of Göbekli Tepe, a testament to the power of your shared beliefs and your ability to cooperate on a monumental scale. You are at the zenith of the world of the hunter-gatherer, a world of deep knowledge, sophisticated technology, rich culture, and a resilient, sustainable partnership with the landscape. But this world, which has defined human existence for hundreds of thousands of years, is standing on the precipice of a transformation so total that it will change not just how you live, but who you are. The age of mobility is about to give way to the age of the furrowed field. The Neolithic Revolution is beginning. This great transformation was not a single event, but a slow, creeping process that began independently in several parts of the world around 10,000 BCE. It was a choice, or rather a series of small, seemingly insignificant choices that, over time, added up to a complete restructuring of human society. As the climate warmed after the Ice Age, certain wild grasses, like the ancestors of wheat and barley in the Fertile Crescent, began to grow in dense, abundant stands. You, with your deep botanical knowledge, were already harvesting them. But now, perhaps driven by the need to feed the larger groups gathering for ritual projects like Göbekli Tepe, you begin to actively encourage them. You start by saving the seeds from the plants with the most desirable traits, the ones with the largest grains, the ones whose seeds don't shatter and fall to the ground when you touch them. You start planting these saved seeds in cleared patches of ground near your camp. At the same time, you begin to manage the animals differently. Instead of just hunting wild sheep and goats, you start to guide the herds, protecting them from other predators and culling the most aggressive males. You begin to select for docility, for faster growth, for more wool. You are no longer just a partner with nature. You are actively rewriting its genetic code. You are domesticating the world, and in the process, you are domesticating yourselves. This creates a powerful feedback loop. A reliable plot of cultivated grain can produce far more calories per acre than a wild landscape can. More food means your population can grow. A larger population requires even more food, which means clearing more land, planting more crops, and becoming ever more dependent on the harvest. The freedom of mobility, the ability to simply walk away from a place that has become depleted or dangerous, is slowly traded for the security of a full grain silo. You are no longer a people who follow the seasons across a vast territory. You are a people who stay put, who guard your fields and your stored surplus. You have become farmers. On the surface, this looks like progress. And in many ways, it was. Agriculture allowed for the population explosion that led to the creation of cities, states, writing, metallurgy, and the complex technological world we now inhabit. But for the average person living through this transition, the bargain came with a staggering price. Life did not necessarily get easier or better. In many crucial ways, it got significantly harder. Let's look at the toll on your body. The skeletal remains of the first farmers tell a clear story. Farming is backbreaking labor. The repetitive motions of clearing fields, tilling soil with a simple digging stick, planting seeds, stooping for hours to pull weeds, and then the intense labor of the harvest. It all takes a brutal toll. Your bones, if an archaeologist were to find them 12,000 years from now, would show the telltale signs of this new life. Severe arthritis in your lower back and knees, worn down joints, and other markers of intense physical stress. Your teeth would be riddled with cavities and abscesses, a problem virtually unknown among hunter-gatherers, caused by a new diet high in starchy, carbohydrate-rich grains. And that diet, despite its caloric density, was a nutritional disaster compared to what your ancestors ate. Instead of the incredible variety of dozens of different plants, animals, and fish that the hunter-gatherer enjoyed, your diet is now dangerously monotonous. You eat wheat or rice or corn. You eat it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. This lack of dietary diversity leads to widespread nutritional deficiencies. Your skeleton shows the evidence of anemia in its porous, spongy bone tissue. You are, on average, several inches shorter than your forager ancestors, a direct result of malnutrition during childhood. You may have a full belly, but you are far less healthy. And for the first time, you are surrounded by epidemic disease. Living in a permanent village means living in close proximity to your own waste. It means your water supply can become contaminated. And, crucially, it means living in intimate, daily contact with your newly domesticated animals. The great plagues of human history, smallpox, measles, tuberculosis, influenza, are zoonotic diseases. They began as animal illnesses that, thanks to the new, crowded conditions of the Neolithic village, made the leap to human hosts. A hunter-gatherer band was too small and too mobile for an epidemic to take hold. If someone got sick, the group might move on, leaving the pathogen behind. In your new, crowded, settled world, a disease can sweep through the entire population like wildfire. It turns out that living on top of your own garbage while sharing a living space with a goat is not a great public health strategy. The costs were not just biological. They were profoundly social. The very structure of your world is reconfigured. In your old life, the concept of private property was minimal. The land, the rivers, the herds, they belonged to everyone. And the most important social rule was that of sharing. Now, that all changes. A specific plot of land, the one your family cleared and planted, now belongs to you. The grain you harvest and store in your hut is your surplus. For the first time, some families, through luck or better land, accumulate more than others. This is the origin of wealth, and with it, the origin of poverty and inequality. The deep, horizontal egalitarianism of the hunter-gatherer band is fractured, replaced by the vertical hierarchies of landowners and laborers, of the rich and the poor. Suddenly you have to worry about your neighbor's fence being 6 inches over your property line, a problem your ancestors never had to contemplate. Your entire conception of time and work is transformed. The cyclical, event-based time of the forager is replaced by the linear, demanding time of the farmer. The calendar becomes a tyrant. You must plant after the last frost. You must weed constantly. You must harvest before the autumn rains spoil the crop. Your life is no longer a fluid dance with the seasons. It is a rigid schedule of relentless labor. Work is no longer a few enjoyable hours a day. It is a dawn-to-dusk struggle to wrest a living from the soil. And with stored surplus and valuable land comes the curse of organized warfare. Your grain silo is a tempting prize for nomadic raiders or for other, less fortunate farming villages. And so you must build walls. The ancient walls of Jericho, dating back some 10,000 years, are one of the earliest examples of this new reality. And if you have walls, you need a specialized class of people to defend them. Soldiers. And you need a leader, a chief, or a king to organize the defense and manage the surplus. Some scholars, like James C. Scott, argue that the early agricultural state was not a benevolent institution for the public good, but essentially a form of organized coercion, forcing farming populations into servitude through taxation and control. This was the Faustian bargain of the Neolithic Revolution. We traded the wild freedom, robust health, and egalitarian social world of our ancestors for the security of a storable food supply. That security allowed our population to explode, paving the way for the world we know. But the price for the average human was immense. A life of harder labor, poorer health, greater inequality, and endemic warfare. As you stand at the edge of the first cultivated field, watching the first shoots of domesticated wheat push through the soil, you stand at the dawn of a new world. It will be a world of cities, of writing, of empires, of incredible art and science. But it will also be a world of famines, of plagues, of social injustice, and of ecological devastation. The problems that plague us today are not new. Their seeds were sown here 10,000 years ago when we made the fateful choice to build a fence, to stay put, and to guard our harvest. It's just past 8 a.m. on a Friday morning here in my time, as people get ready for a day of work ruled by the clock. It's worth remembering that this way of life is a very recent experiment. For most of our history, Friday just meant it was a good day to go for a long walk and see what the world had to offer. And so, our long walk through the deep past comes to its end. The flickering images of ancient hearths, of masterful artists and engineers, of temples on lonely hilltops, and of the first furrowed fields can all begin to soften now, their edges blurring as you let them drift away. The vastness of that lost world, with all of its triumphs and its trade-offs, can be set aside for another time. There are no more questions to answer, no more mysteries to ponder tonight. There is only the quiet of your room and the gentle pull of sleep. Feel the day's tension releasing from your shoulders, your mind letting go of the long thread of history we followed together. Let the gentle hum of the fan or the quiet sounds of the night become a soothing blanket of sound, wrapping you in comfort and peace. You are safe, you are warm, and you are ready for rest. Allow your breathing to become slow and deep, and with each breath, feel yourself sinking further into a state of profound and effortless calm. The story is over. Now, only sleep remains. End of script. Sweet dreams.